Hello, everybody. We're about ready to talk about a book called Another by Paul Tremblay. I'm not going to say what my review of this is until we get to the end, but I think you'll be able to figure out from the tone of what I'm talking about that how I feel about it. So first off, what is this book about? What is the plot? Well, there's this kid, 11 or 12. His name is Casey. He's at home from school during COVID, during the 2020 pandemic, taking school from home. He has a week off. During that week, he gets a phone call on an old style rotary phone, and somebody says they're going to bring over his friend to spend the entire week, which is news to Casey, the main character, because Casey doesn't have any friends. But yeah, the parents agree to it. It's kind of surprising that the parents would agree to having a kid spend the whole week with them, but okay, when the man shows up, he has a giant burlap sack over his back, plops it on the floor, and out of it comes this. It's sort of like a mannequin made out of clay that can move on its own. He calls it Morel, as in the mushroom. And oddly, the parents don't react to anything odd about this. They think it's perfectly okay that this Morel looks like a mannequin made out of clay that's 3 feet tall and moves around on its own. Over the week, Casey starts to find that he's starting to look a little bit more like Morel, and Morel is starting to look a little bit more like Casey. And I won't go any further into the plot than that, but that's what the basic plot is. What is this book about? To be honest with you, not much. The book is 170 pages long, so there's not really a whole lot of time for it to suddenly develop any subtext in it. So, I mean, the fact that it doesn't have subtext, I'm not going to hold against it. But let's try and think of at least maybe a couple things that we could apply to it. We could discuss about the fact that Casey is roughly 11 or 12 years old. It's not really said how old he is, but he's just going into junior high, so the 11 to 12 range is about right. And everybody knows during that time, you start to go through a lot of changes. You start to be kind of unsure about yourself. And so there could be a certain level of that in the body horror of this book. I got to be honest with you, that seems like a very tenuous idea of a theme being forced on the book rather than an actual theme that's in the book. There is another possible interpretation of this book is trying to find the most authentic version of yourself and using that to fight back against all the problems that you might be having in your life. That's a little bit more of a understandable theme. It works a little bit more in this because it actually ties into the ultimate plot. Still, kind of feels like I'm forcing that onto it. So let's talk about the good points of this book. Obviously, the writing is very good in it. Paul Tremblay is a very fine author. I really have liked everything else by Paul Tremblay. I can't complain one iota about the actual text of this book. The story's very basic. And it would have been perfectly serviceable as a 30-page short story. Point blank, it would have made a really great entry into a short story collection, maybe a 30-page, maybe even a 40-page short story, which is one of the problems. It is 170 pages long. And I did there was one very tiny twist in it about Morel. I'm not going to say what it is because some people may actually want to read it, because some people may be like me and really like Paul Tremblay's writing. He's also written Cabin at the End of the World, which everybody else may know was made into a movie by M. Night Shyamalan called Knock on the Cabin Door or something like that. It's actually a really good movie. Shyamalan kind of twisted the ending a little bit and actually kind of weakened it, but well, that's neither here nor there. How about the bad points of this book? Well, first off, the writing was completely from Casey's point of view. If anybody has ever read Paul Tremblay, they might have realized that Tremblay has a consistent problem writing children. He always writes them as either too young or too old. And that's a problem when you have 170 pages told entirely from the point of view of a child. So, I mean, right there you have the first problem. Two, the pacing was way too slow in this book. I figured out exactly every story beat, almost every story beat, within about the first 20 pages of this novel. And like I said before, this would have worked great as a 30-page short story. When it's 170 pages and you already know every single story beat going forward, that is a serious problem. It is really not great. The plot played out exactly as I expected it to. And when you're being presented with a plot that plays out so rote and so blandly, like a straight line, and you're in there for 170 pages, this 170 pages felt like it was 9,000 pages long. It took me 4 days to read 170 pages. And that's not normal for me. I'm a relatively fast reader. But that should tell you, because I would get to the point where I was like, okay, I've read 20 pages. I can't take any more today. And just put it down. My final review, I think you can kind of tell I did not like this book at all. I usually really like Tremblay. He's a really good writer. I liked everything else I've ever read by him. This one, no, it just didn't work. And I would, if anybody else wants to read it, I mean, it is only 170 pages. If you go in with the expectation that it's going to play out exactly like you would expect it to, you will not be disappointed. Myself, I was disappointed by it because I was expecting a bit more. I only finished it just because I was expecting maybe Tremblay could come up with at least something that would be at all interesting. And he just didn't. Like I said, there is one tiny little twist in it concerning Morel, but even that really didn't help it. So overall review, this is going to have to be my first do not read this book review. I'm sorry, Paul, but I didn't like this book at all. Anyway, that will be it for today. Stay positive. Bye-bye.